Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here once again on this Football Friday. We got a lot to talk about on today's show. We're going to preview all of the games for this weekend, and we're also going to recap last night's game to start off the show between the Bills and the Bucs. We'll recap that in a second, but I just want to remind you guys. Well, first I want to do the Patreon second. But obviously, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, to be a part of the show. For me to highlight your comment in the comments section, and talk about it on the show. Make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And obviously, for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com, search up GSMC Sports Network, and that is where you can find all of the exclusive content here on the GSMC Sports Network. Not just my podcast, but the other podcasts as well here on the GSMC Sports Network. We have actually a doubleheader today. We got the football podcast right now, and then we have the baseball podcast. That'll be shortly after I record the Patreon for this episode today. I'll preview the World Series, which begins tonight, and I'll recap the championship series in both the American League and the National League, and go through some other news around the league as well. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Let's start off the show now by getting into talking about last night's game. And, I said yesterday that I thought this would be a two-score game. I thought the Bills would get back on track, and they did. But, again, I wasn't I left wanting more with that game last night from the Bills. Because at times you looked at it and you're like, wow, here we go. This is the Bills that we're expected to see. But especially in the second half, I mean, they only scored 7 points, and I kept saying, because I had the Bills covering the spread last night, I'm like, you got to score again, because eventually the Bucs are gonna are gonna score again at some point. And sure enough, it happened at the end of the game. And the Bucs backdoored, so I ended up losing that game in my spread pool, which just was, again, a bad beat. The backdoor is one of my greatest enemies. But let's go through it. So the Bills the Bucs started off the game. They punted. The Bills went down the field, 10 plays, 77 yards, 4.5 minutes, and they kicked a field goal. The Bucs then went down the field as well, 7 plays, 48 yards, but they ended up missing a field goal. That actually, I think that got blocked. Yeah, it was a blocked field goal. And then the Bills turned it over on downs. Bucs punted and gave the Bills good field position. 5 plays, 23 yards on their next drive, almost 3 minutes. And the Bills got their first touchdown. Josh Allen rushed for 13 yards. And he actually was in the medical tent. They were checking out his shoulder. They were saying on the broadcast that he was giving low fives instead of high fives on the sideline. Because you saw Kyle Allen warming up, and you're like, oh, no. But Josh Allen was able to finish the game. So it was 10-0 at that point. Then a field goal the Bucs got, 8 plays, 36 yards. So it was 10-3 at that point. And then on the Bills' first possession of their next drive, Josh Allen throws a pass that gets tipped up in the air and intercepted, and the Bucs cash in. Baker Mayfield connects with Chris Godwin for 3 yards, a 3-yard touchdown there. That was set up by a Baker Mayfield pass to Rachaad White for 20 yards, and he was involved in the passing game a lot last night. Then the Bucks, then after that, the Bills responded with their own touchdown, 9 plays, 75 yards, 4 minutes, and that was to Dalton Kincaid, a 22-yard touchdown. So that was his first touchdown of the season. And he's going to have to step up because obviously Dawson Knox, their number one tight end, he's going to be out for a while. I think he's getting wrist surgery. So Kincaid, a guy that's got to step up, and he did so on that drive. Bucks punted, and then the Bills just kneeled it down, and that was the end of the half. And then the Bills scored a touchdown on their first possession out of the half. Josh Allen connected with Gabe Davis for a touchdown, a 4-yard touchdown. So the Bills were up 2 scores, and that was the last time they scored. The next 4 possessions in the third quarter were all punts. First 2 possessions of the fourth quarter were punts. And then the Bucks went on a drive that was 17 plays, 92 yards, almost 7.5 minutes, and got a touchdown. And it was one of the weirdest drives because the Bills, they stopped them on 4th down twice. And there was, of course, penalties. There was a penalty. So to start the drive, there was a penalty on the Bucks. It was a false start. The next penalty was a offensive holding. So immediately the Bucks got backed up, and then Mayfield got sacked twice, and then of course there was a penalty on 4th down and 10. It was illegal contact, so that gave him a first down. Then another penalty where on 4th and 8 you thought, okay, now the game's over, and there was a face mask. So the Bucks continued their drive, and then on 4th and 10. Baker connected with Mike Evans for a 24-yard touchdown, and that actually got that got tipped. Well, it didn't get tipped, but like the defensive back made contact with it, and Evans was able to maintain possession and hold on to it. But then the 2-point conversion was tipped up, and Cade Otton made the catch. Then the Bills punted. The Bucks were able to heave a Hail Mary, which actually could have gotten caught. And people talking about it possibly could have been a flag that should have been thrown, but wasn't. But Chris Godwin was in position to make that catch. Nobody made contact with the ball. Baker threw it from his own 45. So that was an impressive throw to make it there. I didn't really think he had the. I mean, he actually has thrown a Hail Mary before, so I can't say I didn't. I was surprised by his arm strength because he has heaved up a Hail Mary before. But Godwin wasn't able to see it in time, and it just fell, and that was how the game ended. Josh Allen finished the game, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, which led to points. Bills really didn't they did try to run the ball. James Cook was their leading rusher, 14 carries for 67 yards. Josh Allen had 7 for 41 and a touchdown. Their leading receiver was actually Khalil Shakir, 6 receptions for 92 yards. Gabe Davis had a good game, 9 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. Diggs had a quiet night, 9 for 70. Dalton Kincaid had 5 for 65 and a touchdown. And then on the Bucs side, Baker, 25 for 42, 237, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Bucs really couldn't run the ball in this game. They only ran it for 78 yards. Rashad White was their leading rusher. He was also their leading receiver, 7 receptions for 70 yards. Chris Godwin had 5 for 54 and a touchdown. Mike Evans had 3 for 39 and a touchdown, and most of that came off of the 24-yard touchdown. He was quiet most of the night. But yeah, a couple things to talk about. Again, Josh Allen's interception led to more points. I felt like they should have won this game by multiple scores. I mean, they were the better team, but they scored 7 points in the second half. And as for the Bucs, again, more of the same. They're continuing to struggle to run the football. Baker Mayfield, they were talking about it, I think, on the telecast too, is he was a little gun shy. There was a lot of checkdowns last night. Really didn't throw the ball down the field. And the offense really struggled to do anything last night. I mean, they got gifted the Josh Allen turnover that set up the Godwin touchdown, but overall, the Bucs offense, they struggled most of the night. I mean, Baker's stat line looks decent, but if you really watch the game, I mean, the Bucs really struggled to move the ball the whole night. And, they got gifted the penalties, too, that set up that touchdown. So, the game is a lot closer than it should have been. But, again, the Bills, they still look off. You get the win, which is good. But Josh Allen, that was a bad pick. Well, not really a bad pick, but it got tipped up. But, again, another turnover that led to, points for the other team. So, but, the Bills get back on the right track. The Bucs, they lose another game. That's 3 in a row now after they started off the season 3-1. So, yeah, the Bucs defense kept them in it. So, you got to give them credit for that. But, the offense still has some issues, again, struggling to run the ball. Baker was holding on to the ball for a while. He didn't, he really didn't, he didn't have any quick releases on any of his passes. I thought, because the other thing too is, the Bills were backing up the Bucs, in bad field position. They were literally thrown from their own end zone. And I was surprised that Baker didn't get sacked for a safety. I thought that was coming, but that it didn't. But the Bills get the win. They get back on the right track in terms of, getting back in the win column. But they're still not right. They're still not right. There were a few moments where you're like, okay, here we go. But then, the offense stalled in the second half. And the Bucs backdoored, which I'm just still very salty about. Now, I have Mike Evans in fantasy, so that was at least good. But, really? And the only reason they even got in that spot is because of the penalties. Game should have been over. Final score should have been 24-10. But, yeah, they gotta. Josh Allen's gotta not turn the ball over, because again, the Bucs cashed in on that. They cashed in on that, and they cashed in on penalties. So if those don't happen, then what does the score end up being? But the Bills needed that win. They got to keep pace with the Dolphins. The Bucs, they're not out of anything by any means. They still got a shot with the division, but they've lost 3 in a row now, and that's not good, especially because they were 3-1, and I thought, hey, they look like the best team in their division right now. Well, right now that's not the case. The offense is struggling. So, and I know Tristan Wirfs, he got banged up in this game. But, yeah, Mike Evans really didn't do anything in this game. You can also credit the Bills' defense. They did a good job covering him. But, yeah, a lot of checkdowns, last night. So, and that's not really that's not going to win you games. You saw what the Saints doing it the other night. Well, last week. So, yeah, both offenses are struggling right now. The Bills got the win. The better team won last night. The Bucs actually, the Bucs had their chances. They could have won. They kept it close, but they just couldn't. They couldn't move the ball. So, but the Bills get the win, and they improved to now 5-3 on the season. Bucs dropped to 3-4. So, yeah, that's what got us started for Week 8. So, with that, we are going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to discuss the 49ers-Bengals game. Obviously, Brock Purdy, it looks like he's not going to be playing, so it's going to be Sam Darnold. Bengals coming off of a bye. This is one of the best games this weekend, arguably the best. So we'll preview that when we come back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. So stick around, and we'll be right back. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to preview the Cincinnati Bengals, San Francisco 49ers game. So the Bengals coming off of a bye, they're coming in at 3-3. 49ers are coming in at 5-2. Dropped their last two games to the Browns and the Vikings. It looks like Brock Purdy is not going to make the start in this game. It looks like it's going to be Sam Darnold making the start. And this is a big game. This is a big game for both teams. Bengals trying to get over 500. And the 49ers are trying to get back to their winning ways because they've dropped their last two. And they kind of need a win here. And these two teams did meet a couple of years ago. I did talk about it, I think, yesterday at some point. Back in 2021, an overtime game. Niners won that game. That was when Garoppolo was the quarterback, and that was obviously the year that both teams were in the championship games that year, but the Bengals made it to the World Series. We're talking about that on the baseball podcast. It made it to the Super Bowl that year. That was a good game, and that was in Cincinnati. This is now in San Francisco. Different quarterback will be playing for the Niners, regardless if it's Purdy or Darnold, but it looks like it's Darnold. But yeah, I mean, the Bengals right now are 3-3. Niners are 5-2. The Niners looked like they were the best team in football, like by far, but that's kind of changed a little bit the last couple of weeks. They've been struggling. But let's go through the stats for this game. So, in terms of their league rankings. So on offense, the Bengals right now are 28th in passing yards per game. They're at 205. And as for the Niners, they're at 238. So they're kind of the middle of the pack as well. Purdy doesn't throw for a ton of yards. And Joe Burrow hasn't been great this year, although he's, the Bengals, they were starting to put things together, before the bye week. Again, two teams that don't throw for a ton of yards. But, and again, I don't want to discredit Brock Purdy. I mean, Brock Purdy's having a great year. Well, not the last two games, but up until that point. But in terms of rushing, the Niners are top 10. They're 7th, averaging 136.4. Bengals are 31st. They are averaging 69.8. So that's not good. And then in terms of their points per game, the Niners are 28.7, averaging 28.7 points per game. They're second. And the Bengals are 28th. They're averaging 16.7. So, yeah, a lot in the favor of the Niners. Then we go to the defensive side of the ball. And passing yards, both defenses are around the same, middle of the pack. Bengals are 15th. Niners are 16th. Bengals are giving up an average of 232.3. Niners are giving up an average of 238.9, and that definitely got inflated after what Kirk Cousins did to them the other day. In terms of rushing yards, now this is definitely key. The Niners are 3rd, and the Bengals are 29th. They're giving up an average of 142.8. Niners are giving up an average of 79.3. And who do the Niners have? Christian McCaffrey. So it's going to be a Christian McCaffrey game because he practiced. I think he logged a full practice. So, yeah, and the Bengals are not a good running team, so they're going to be throwing it on Sunday. Joe Mixon hasn't been great this year. And then points allowed, Niners are 3rd. They're giving up an average of 15.6, and the Bengals are giving up an average of 21.2. So, yeah, I mean, you favor the Niners in this game. The line was at 5.5, then it went down to 3.5. Now it's up to 4. I think it's going to be a close game. Now, Niners are going to run the ball. Bengals aren't good against the run, so the Niners with Christian McCaffrey, they're going to get him going. Because the Vikings, they kind of, he had 2 touchdowns, but they didn't really have McCaffrey breaking off huge runs other than like the passing touchdown. The 30, I think it was like a 34-yard touchdown that Brock Purdy had to McCaffrey. So McCaffrey's going to run the football well in this game. But the key here is can the Bengals offensive line protect Joe Burrow against this defensive front for the Niners? And if they're able to do that, you got to give the Bengals a good shot in this game. Because, you saw what the Vikings were able to do on Monday against the Niners. And listen, if you give Joe Burrow protection with those weapons, I think the Bengals are going to be able to move the ball against the Niners on Sunday. I really do. Kirk Cousins passed for 378 yards. Jordan Addison had a big game. Now you got Joe Burrow coming in with Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins I think is going to be back this week, and Tyler Boyd. So it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be close, and we'll see what Sam Darnold brings to the table. I know I brought up if he plays well, is there a QB controversy? Now I'm not saying that there should be, but the Niners do like Sam Darnold. So is it possible that if he plays well and Purdy comes back and doesn't play well, could we see a QB change maybe? I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But so right now, Brock Purdy actually yesterday logged a limited practice on Thursday because he's still in concussion protocol. But we'll see. It's not set in stone yet. It's still questionable, but the way they made it seem, it was like Sam Darnold is going to start. So what's going to be funny is Brock Purdy's going to play, and this conversation, and I said it yesterday, it's not going to mean anything. So, but this is a big game for the Bengals. Right now, they're in last place in their division. They're a game and a half back of the Ravens for first place. We'll actually have a discussion about the Ravens and the Bengals later in the show because I did get some comments on talking about the Ravens the other day. So I wanted to address that. Get those comments recognized as well on the stream. So that'll be when we go over the Ravens game. We'll talk about that. So but this is we'll see what happens with the Niners. Obviously Trent Williams, he was dealing with an ankle. I think I checked yesterday. He's still questionable. So let's check that out very quick. And Deebo Samuel obviously isn't going to play in this game. He's out. Trent Williams questionable. Yeah, right now he's still questionable with an ankle. So if they get him back, that would be huge. Orlando Brown for the Bengals. He's questionable with the groin. So the Bengals are going to need him for this game. Protecting him against that defensive front. So again, that's really the key. If they're able to protect Burrow, I think he could do something similar to what Kirk Cousins did on Monday against the Niners. I just still can't believe that they could not get any pressure on Kirk Cousins. They didn't sack him one time. And I think that's a little bit concerning. I do. But, we'll just have to wait and see, how this game plays out. This is a late afternoon game. This is the number one game on CBS. I wish this was the Sunday night game because we're going to have to watch Tyson Bagent versus Justin Herbert. So that should be fun. And we'll preview it. We'll preview it. All right, we'll get to it. But that'll be the last game we talk about on the show. But yeah, we'll still wait on the status for Brock Purdy. Similar to what the Bengals offense is kind of similar to the Vikings, where they're not very good at running the football, so they're gonna have to throw it. That's basically what it's gonna be. And if the Niners don't get any pressure, then it's gonna be a problem. But I think this will be a competitive game. The Bengals are trying to get themselves back over 500 for the first time. After getting off to a slow start this year. Can the Niners win a game? What happened? Back-to-back road games. Back-to-back road losses. They should have won against the Browns. I mean, if you make that field goal, they win. But that's not the case. I mean, now they're 5-2. They're looking a little vulnerable right now. But I've been saying it. Every team has had a bad loss this year, so this season it's like a week by week basis. Like you don't know, a week to week basis. You don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah, you really don't. You may think you know, but then something happens. You're like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But it should be an exciting game. Um, two teams that have Super Bowl aspirations. I know the Bengals are in last place, but that group of players has been to a Super Bowl before, and they've been to back-to-back AFC Championship games. So yeah, they got Super Bowl aspirations. Now the Niners are in a better position right now than the Bengals are, but again, that can all change. We still got like half a season to go. But I like I said, Christian McCaffrey, they're gonna get him going. He should have a good game here. Try to get the ball to Brandon Ayuk more because, I mean, now that I'm not playing my friend who has him this week, then they could do whatever they want with him. It was just I just thought it was crazy how towards the end of that game they really just did not target Ayuk. But we'll see. Maybe get George Kittle more involved in the offense. I mean, with Debo out, yeah. I mean, the guys are gonna have to step up. In his absence. Now, obviously, you got to look at some of like Juwan Jennings and Ronnie Bell. Like those guys are gonna have to step up. I mean, Ayuk, Kittle, and McCaffrey. You don't have to worry about them, but get them involved, of course. Get Kittle and get Ayuk more involved. No matter who's playing quarterback this week. So, but yeah, I mean, ultimately it's going to come down to can the Bengals protect Joe Burrow in this game, and if they don't, then the Bengals really don't have well, I shouldn't say they really don't have a chance, but it's you would definitely lean more towards the Niners in this game. And I think you probably still do, just because the Niners are home and they're due for a win at some point. But I think the Bengals keep it close. And I think, with the bye week, that definitely had to help Burrow's calf. So, because he was starting to move around a little bit better. So we'll see how he is, out of the bye week. It's a good test, but, you're afraid because it's against, one of the best defensive fronts in football. So we'll see. We'll see how he does. But yeah, that's pretty much it with this topic, previewing this game. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll preview the early window games for Sunday. We'll go over that when we come back. But again, I just want to remind you guys, when it comes to tipping, to become a big part of the show. Make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show better. It's, the host interacting with the viewer. I talk about your comment. I make sure to highlight it in the broadcast, that it makes the show a whole lot better. So, we greatly appreciate it if you do that. Again, it's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. The link's right there. And it's also on the ticker on the bottom. And then, of course, for the bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this live broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network, and that is where you can find all the exclusive content from all of our podcasts here on the GSMC Sports Network. So with that, we are going to take our second break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss the early window games for this week. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to preview all of the early window games that are on Sunday. So we'll go through each of them, and I'll give you my thoughts on each game. I'll give you a prediction. I might not say who I would pick when it comes to the spread, just because I'm still undecided on some of these games. Because some of them are hard, because you just have no idea. So we'll start off with, actually we'll get the New York teams out of the way. So you got the New York Giants taking on the New York Jets. Both teams play in New Jersey. MetLife Stadium. Giants are technically the home team for this game. And the last time these two teams met, Jamal Adams ripped the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands and returned it for a touchdown. But I will say that nothing is going to at the moment, nothing is going to top Victor Cruz taking it to the house against the Jets in 2011 to begin the Giants Super Bowl run. Just saying. But yeah, obviously these two teams are a lot different than they were back in 2011. The Jets are 3-3, Giants are 2-5. And people are talking about, this could be the biggest rivalry in New York, and at least that's what they're saying here. And I'm like, no, it's not. I talked to my friends about it. No, it's not. They're making it out to be that way. I'm not. They're teams that play each other every 4 years. I don't think so. It looks like it's going to be Tyrod Taylor starting again. The Giants, the defense has been playing better the last couple of weeks. The offense, we finally scored an offensive touchdown at home. Yeah, it took until week 7 to do so. Jets are coming off of a bye week. The week before that, they obviously beat the Eagles, which is impressive. The defense forced 4 turnovers in the game. That's really the reason they won, is because of their defense. So you got two good the Jets are a good defense. Giants' defense has been playing better. So with this game, it's going to be low scoring. It's going to be low scoring. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat there. I think the Jets win this game. I think it's going to be close. But I think the Jets win. Right now, the Giants are +3. I mean, I would right now. I'm just going to say the Jets are going to win outright. I just look at them as the better team, and we'll see. But the Giants' defense has been playing well. They could definitely force Zach Wilson into some turnovers. But I think the Jets win this game. They're the better team, coming off of a bye. But we'll see. Then we move on to a NFC North battle. We got the Minnesota Vikings coming in after a huge win against the 49ers at 3-4, taking on the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field, who dropped the game against the Broncos last week and are 2-4, have lost 3 in a row. And yeah, things aren't looking good right now. It's tough, but you know what? I am going to pick the Packers in an upset. I'm going to do that. I'm going to say they win this game, and you're like, what have they shown you to, win this game? Nothing really, but you know what? They're due for a win. They are definitely due for a win. They're at home. The Vikings coming off of that huge win against the Niners, so they're running high. Packers are due for a win right now. They've lost 3 in a row. You would think they got to win at some point, right? And listen, the Vikings, they won against the best team, arguably, in football up until this point. So obviously, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, they should win against the Packers, no problem. But I'm going to be a little risky here. I'm not confident with it, but I say the Packers win this game. So I'll take them to win against the Vikings. But, expect Kirk Cousins to have a good game. I mean, Jordan Love, don't turn the ball over, which probably will happen. But the problem is Packers get off to these slow starts, and then, they get it going in the second half, and it's too late. So we might see the same thing happen again. But, I'll take the Packers in an upset. Then we got the 5-2 Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the 4-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers coming off of a big win against the Rams last week. Jacksonville defeating the Saints on Thursday. This should be a good game. and I didn't like picking against the Steelers last week. My dad's a Steelers fan. I really didn't think they were going to beat the Rams, but they did. Got to give them credit. They're 4-2. But you know what? I'm going to go with the Jags in this game. They're starting to gel a little bit, although like, in the second half of last week's game, they weren't as good as they were in the first half. Against the Saints. But you know what? They still held on. They won the game. They look like they're taking the hold of the division. So I'll take them. Although, I won't be surprised if the Steelers win because that defense is really good. Jags defense also been playing really good as well as of late. So then we got the Houston Texans taking on the Carolina Panthers. You got the number 1 overall pick versus the number 2 overall pick, Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud. Panthers are 0-6. Texans are 3-3. I took the Panthers with the points in my spread pool because it was 3.5. But you know what? I'm going to say the Texans win, but it's going to be a close game. I went with the points, home underdog. I know the Panthers are 0-6. But hey, listen, they were up 14-0 against Miami a couple weeks ago. So maybe, this game will be competitive. And, C.J. Stroud's having a good season. So, hopefully it's a good game. But I see the Texans win this game. Panthers cover. But we'll see. Then you got the Rams going to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Rams coming in at 3rd, 3-4. Cowboys coming in at 4-2. Coming off of a bye. Rams are getting 6 points, and I was thinking about taking it, but I don't know. I'm going to say the Cowboys win this game, but again, I might. Right now I have the Cowboys in my spread pool. I might change it. Because the Rams, I still think they could be a wild card team, but, they didn't look great against the Steelers last week. And, again, the Cowboys, they're at home. They've been good at home this year. They blew out the Jets. They blew out the Patriots. I know you could look at that and say, well, the Jets aren't a bad team. Patriots are a bad team. I think at home they win by a touchdown. But right now I have Dallas winning. I would say Dallas wins. So now we got the next game. You got the Saints and the Colts. I really don't know who to pick for this game. The Colts, they put up 38 points on the Browns defense last week. A lot of people are talking about them being a really good defense, and they are, but that was a really bad game for their defense last week. Gardner Minshew playing quarterback for them. And then you got the Saints coming in at 3-4. They haven't looked great on offense. Derek Carr has been throwing the ball, 50-plus times the last 2 weeks. So, you kind of want to, hope he doesn't have to do that again. They've been checking it down to Alvin Kamara. Saints fans are really frustrated with the play calling. So, I don't like it, but I am going to pick the Saints to win this game. I think they are due, just like the Packers, they are another team that is due for a win. They've lost to the Texans. They've lost to the Jags. Now they're playing another AFC South opponent. But I think they get the win here. But again, I will not be surprised if the Colts win. I think that it's going to be a competitive game. The Saints haven't looked good, but we'll see. So I'm going to say the Saints win this game because I think they're due for a win. Then you got the New England Patriots at 2-5 after an unexpected win against the Bills, taking on the Miami Dolphins at 5-2. Right now, the Dolphins are 9.5-point favorites. Tyreek Hill actually practiced, so it looks like he's on track to play. It gave a lot of people a little bit of a scare because he missed practice, but he was back at practice, so he's going to play. Jalen Waddle, he's dealing with an injury right now. He's questionable, I believe, with a back injury. So we'll see what his status is for this week. Once we get up to the game. I'm going to say the Dolphins win and cover. The Bills, they just have not looked great. recently. So the Patriots, they caught them at the right time. They're going to Miami after a big win, and Miami's played well against them the last couple of years, especially in Miami. So I think the Dolphins win by a couple of scores. But again, that's what I think. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots cover in this game. But Tyreek Hill playing, that's going to be a problem for him. And I don't think the Patriots have the offense to keep up with the Dolphins. So, I'll take the Dolphins, and I'll lay the 9.5. All right, then we got another game. I have no idea. You got the Falcons and the Titans. Falcons coming in at 4-3, Titans 2-4. It's a home game for the Titans. Will Levis will be making his NFL debut. Teams both have good defenses. The Titans, obviously, they traded away Kevin Byard to the Eagles. So that secondary is a little bit weaker. Listen, you would think, take the Falcons. I'm going to take the Titans with the points at home. I don't trust the Falcons. And I know they beat the Bucs last week on the road, but back-to-back road games, I think the Titans pull off the upset here. Desmond Ritter's been turning the ball over. I think that's going to continue. But we'll see. We'll see how Will Levis does in his debut. Again, don't feel great about it. I really don't feel great about any of these picks. I'm going to be honest. I'm probably going to have another rough week. All right, so then for the final early slate game, early window game, you got the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. The last time these two teams met, they were in Philadelphia. It went into overtime. Eagles were able to win. Jake Elliott kicked the game-winning field goal. What was the score for that game? That was final score of that game was 34-31. The Commanders are a +7 home underdog. And right now in the forecast, it says it's going to rain. Again, I don't feel confident. I'm going to take the Eagles. I'm going to say I'm going to take them to win the game, but I think they'll cover the spread. I think they'll correct the mistakes from, the last time these two teams met. And the other thing, too, is I took the Eagles the last time. And I feel like in this spot, you'd be like, well, the last time the Commanders played well against the Eagles, so I'm going to take them here at home. They're getting 7 points. And then you know what's going to happen? The Eagles are going to, win by multiple scores. So I'm not going to fall into that trap. But you know what? Again, my predictions have been very bad. So, I'm probably going to be wrong. But yeah, so to run through them really quickly. So I got the Jets winning over the Giants, Packers over the Vikings, Jags over the Steelers, Texans over the Panthers, Panthers covering. Right now I have Dallas over the Rams and covering. Saints over the Colts, Dolphins over the Patriots, Titans over the Falcons, Eagles over the Commanders. Those are all of my picks for the early window games on Sunday. So, with that, we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we will then preview and do our picks for the late window games. So that'll be what we do when we come back from our final break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we are now going to preview the late window games for this weekend. Nick Urillo, before I left, commented in the chat, Tyrod is leading the Giants to victory. Listen, I hope so. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, they cleared concussion protocol, so they're going to be back this week. So that's, the Jets defense is going to be pretty much back to full strength for this game. So it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be tough, but we'll see. We'll see. The Giants defense has been playing well. I think it should be a close game. It should be. But in my spread pool, I think the spread was like 2.5, and I took the Jets. But I'm not good with 2-point spreads, so I'm probably going to be wrong. I have no confidence in my picks this week whatsoever. All right, but we'll continue to pick more of these games. All right, so first game we'll go over. We got the Browns and the Seahawks. Browns coming off of a 39-38 marathon against the Colts. The Seahawks coming off of a 20-10 victory over the Cardinals. So the Seahawks, their offense has been okay this year. They've had some red zone problems this year. Browns, the quarterback position's kind of been a mess this year. Deshaun Watson hasn't played well. He's been dealing with injuries. P.J. Walker's had to step in. Right now, the Browns are 30th in passing yards. Seahawks are 13th. But the Browns are a really good running team. They're second in the NFL in rushing, 147.5 rushing yards per game. The Seahawks are 20th at 106. And then, both teams are around the same in terms of their points per game. Seahawks are averaging 24. Browns are averaging 22.3. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Browns are number one against the pass. They're holding their opponents to 170.7 passing yards per game. And the Seahawks are 24th, 59.3 passing yards are giving up per game. Now, obviously, last week against the Colts, they let Gardner Minshew, throw all over the place. So, got to take that into account. And then, in terms of rushing yards, they're both around the same, actually. Seahawks are 6th against the run, and the Browns are 7th against the run. So, that's interesting. And then points allowed, Browns are 10th, and the Seahawks are 12th. I would have to say, and what is the, I want to look up quickly. Is DK Metcalf going to play on Sunday? Got to look at that really quickly. Because I know he missed last week's game. So it doesn't appear he's not on the injury report. So it looks like he's going to play. Tyler Lockett's dealing with a hamstring. Kenneth Walker's dealing with a calf. Bobby Wagner's dealing with an ankle. Brown's got a lot of people injured too. Jerome Ford is doubtful with an ankle. Kareem Hunt's got a thigh injury. Deshaun Watson's got a shoulder. And Njoku's got a knee. Jarek Wills has got a foot injury. A lot of questionables. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to say the Seahawks win this game. In my spread pool, it was 2.5, so I picked the Seahawks to cover. The Browns' quarterback situation right now is just, how Deshaun Watson is playing, and they gave him all that money with that contract. Yeah, that's definitely something to, be a little bit concerned about if you're a Browns fan. Right now, the line's 3.5. I think the Seahawks win this game. They're at home. 3.5. I could definitely see it being a 3-point game. It's 2.5 in my spread pool. So I'll say I'll say that the Browns cover the 3.5. It's a close game, but it's 2.5 in my spread pool. But I think Seahawks win by at least 3. They get the win here. All right, so now we'll go to the Broncos and the Chiefs. These two teams met a couple weeks ago. The final score is 19-8. Broncos are 2-5. Chiefs are 6-1. Broncos are a +7 favorite. Apparently, there's snow in the forecast. It says on CBS. So we'll see. Listen, I picked the Broncos the last time. I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I think they win by at least 2 scores. The Broncos just don't look good offensively. The Chiefs look like they're starting to get into a rhythm. Right now, they look like the best team in the NFL. So I'm going to take them, although I will not be surprised with whatever happens. So, yeah, that's my pick there. And then we got the Ravens and the Cardinals. So I want to get into the Ravens for a second. So I think right now the line is +9.5. Actually, Kyler Murray has been practicing. He logged a full practice, so he might be coming back in a couple weeks. But right now, Josh Dobbs is going to continue to be the starter. They placed Zach Ertz on IR, so look for McBride to get more targets. And you still got James Conner on IR as well. But I think the Ravens win this game by multiple scores. They should. Now, I wanted to address a couple of comments that on the Ravens video. Well, on the Ravens segment from the other day. So the first comment is from Tanya. Again, I'm sorry if I pronounced the names wrong. But Tanya Bowman 7208 said, and this is on the segment talking about how far the Ravens can go. She said, I'm sure people do realize we are implementing a new offense. We were a run-first team, changing our whole offense. Lamar is learning 3 new receivers, and the offensive line is adjusting to a more passing concepts instead of a run-first protection. That Steelers game was at the beginning of the season and the Colts game. We thought it would take about 7 or 8 games to come together. There will still be ups and downs, but as the season continues, we will have a great offense. We got a new OC because Greg Roman wanted Lamar to run first, and he wanted to improve as a passer and spread the field. He requested this before he would sign his contract so he wouldn't get injured. And then, first with this comment, yeah, I mean, listen, anytime you got a new offense that you got to implement, and you've seen it with all quarterbacks across the league. I mean, Aaron Rodgers with Matt LaFleur's system, Peyton Manning had to go through a bunch of systems. Eli Manning I could think of as well. I mean, I'm just all these guys a lot of guys have had to deal with new systems, and yeah, it takes time to adjust. Because the other thing too is, like, I talked about the Ravens, and they've struggled in some games this year, and part of that is drops, and they've been inconsistent. But that was a big win against the Lions, so maybe this is where they really get it going. Now here's the next comment here, and this is from @CourtneyCoconuts, and she said, while the receiver group certainly did not execute at all versus the Steelers, it's hardly a bad loss in terms of Steelers being a bad team. Steelers are 4-2 and heating up. Also, it's a divisional game. Those are inherently tough, close, and low scoring, especially Ravens versus Steelers. Those rivalries are too heated. Anything can happen. You've seen this all year. Just look at the Bills, Jets beat them in week 1, and the 1-5 Patriots beat them last week. Bengals got stomped on by the Browns too, 24-3, and no one remembers that, I guess. Outside of the AFC North, the Titans also beat the Bengals 27-3. Cincy is last in the division because it's the most competitive division in all of football, and they're playing mid right now, and you're still taking them to win it. But you are citing the 2 bad losses the Ravens had as the reasons why you're unsure after they demolished one of the top 5 teams in the league coming into it. If it wasn't for poor ball security in a lot of these circumstances, easily fixable, the 2 losses they have this year wouldn't have happened, and we would have won that playoff game against Cincinnati last year with Tyler Huntley. The Colts beat the Ravens by a field goal in overtime after playing in the pouring rain all day. With half of Ravens starters out on injury, Gardner Minshew ain't great, but he's not hopeless, clearly. They almost just beat the Browns. They hung 38 points on the supposed best defense in football, which is actually the Ravens' defense, yet everyone rides the Browns because of Myles Garrett being a superstar. So let's not act like the Colts are total poverty. They may be mid right now, but they certainly are not the Panthers, Cardinals, or Bears. I agree with that. I'm just saying context matters and applying the same standard. If you're going to judge the Ravens based on their 2 losses without the context instead of their 5 wins, then you should judge the Bengals on their losses, all of them, just the same, because those were arguably way worse. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that comment. Yeah, listen, I still think the Bengals. I still pick them to win the division, but I do understand, like, when talking about the Ravens in that particular segment, I did, say, like, those were bad losses. I think the Steelers game was a bad loss. I still do, because of the fact that you had receivers dropping passes. There was a touchdown pass that was dropped, I think, by Bateman in the end zone, so that should have been a touchdown. And then Lamar Jackson threw a bad pick in the red zone, and that, I think that was what the Steelers capitalized to get. I think that's what led to the drive that, when Kenny Pickett connected with George Pickens for that long touchdown. That that was a bad loss. But I understand, though, that the Bengals, they looked bad against the Browns. They looked really bad against the Browns. Joe Burrow has not played well in Cleveland. That's well documented. But also, the Titans' loss was bad, too. Now, I will say, when you go back to the last couple of seasons, the Bengals have played the Titans. They played them in the playoffs. They played them last year in Tennessee, and they won both of those games. Joe Burrow's been banged up this year, so I think part of the reason why they got blown out against the Titans is because Joe Burrow was not right. That offense was not clicking. And listen, the Bengals are in last place, but they're not, behind by so many games. They're only a game and a half back. And listen, I did highlight the losses of the Ravens in that segment, but let's look at the wins. So the Lions game, very impressive. Very impressive. I have nothing to say about that. But the first game of the year, they played against C.J. Stroud, who's making his NFL debut. They won 25-9, right? Lamar Jackson didn't have his best game. He passed the ball for only 169 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. So there's that. They did beat the Bengals 27-24. They got back on the right track. Lamar played better. Had 2 touchdowns, passed for over 200 yards. Bengals weren't great in that game. They almost, came back in the game. Then they lost to the Colts. Then they beat the Browns in Cleveland. But you also had Deshaun Watson was out, and they played their rookie quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson in that game, DTR. So, they won that game, but you had, a quarterback making his first NFL start. You lose against the Steelers, a game you should have won. And let's not pretend listen, those games are always competitive, but let's not pretend like the Steelers are a good offensive team. They're not. Matt Canada is a guy that Steeler fans are constantly saying, you got to fire him. So the Ravens should have won that game. And then you beat the Titans, and they were coming back in that game, and then Ryan Tannehill got hurt, and Malik Willis finished the game. So the Ravens wins, the most impressive win by far is against the Lions. So I highlighted the losses, but if you look at the wins too, outside of the Lions game, and I guess you could throw in the Bengals, what win is really impressive? They played against 2 quarterbacks that had no NFL experience going in, making their first career starts. I'm just saying. But I get it. Right now the Bengals are in last place. They've had bad losses as well. But I've also said anybody can be beat this year, clearly. I get it though. I get it. But listen, I said the Ravens, if they play like that, they could beat anybody. So this could be the beginning of a hot streak for them, where they just are, running over people. And their defense is playing good as well. So, I get that. But, I just, we talk about the Ravens' wins. Outside of the Lions, you look at those other games. Some of those wins are not really, I'm not going to say they were that impressive just because, of the quarterbacks they were going up against. But still, Ravens are a good team. I'm not taking that away from them. But I appreciate both comments. Obviously, again, they got an offense that they're trying to, figure out, and they're going to continue to get better. And we still got a long way to go. So I just wanted to address that. I appreciate the comments from both of them. And with that, we get to the end of the show, and we'll run through Chargers Bears really quick. Right now, the line's 8.5. I think the Chargers cover. I'm not confident with it, but I think the Chargers got to get right, and I think they will. Bring Tyson Bagent back down to reality, because I know a lot of people were praising him after the game, but they played against the Raiders. So, but with that is all the time that we have for today. Again, I appreciate the comments on the Ravens segment from the other day. Love getting into discussions with the people in the comments. But that's pretty much it for me for today. I'm going to go record the Patreon now. Thank you guys all for tuning in. I'll be recording the baseball podcast 12:45 Eastern time, so make sure to tune in for that. And that's pretty much it. So that's all the time that we got for today. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the games this weekend, and I'll see you guys if you guys tune in for the baseball podcast. So make sure to tune into that. Enjoy the games this weekend, and take care.